Now, having said that, I said to the president that you could have access to whatever you need from the world. Nations would give you access with joy if you would be fair with them and allow what you get from them to get a decent price so that they can improve the quality of life of their people. Colin Powell said, listen to his words, the war on terrorism must fight against poverty and disease, because poverty and disease breeds the terrorists. Half truth. Certainly we must fight against poverty and disease. But it's not just poverty and disease that breeds terrorists. It's the policies of a nation that allows other nations to be poor. And we rise to richness at the expense of the peoples of the world. That is not right. Politics is controlled by money. So the people's vote doesn't mean much when the lobbyists get to Washington and start passing money around. The vote follows. So you may not have the type of democracy that you want. You can get it, but let me move to why I think America has come to a crossroads. You must understand that power is linked in world politics to oil. And as the greatest industrial nation on the earth, America has an insatiable appetite for oil. When coal was the #1 energy in the world, Great Britain ruled the world. She had the greatest deposits of coal. But when the power to move engines moved from coal to oil, then England and America began vying for control of the places on this earth that produce oil. I don't think any religious leader is worthy of God if you can't say to government, "Thus saith the Lord." If you're too weak to say to power, "This is what God said in the book," and you have deviated from this, then you need to get on out the pulpit and stop sucking the blood of the people to be a coward in the name of God. God doesn't like cowards. He loves those who are patient and steadfast under trial. He's clear in the Bible and in the Quran, me and me alone should you fear. And if you're afraid of Bush, then you've set up a God beside God and are unworthy of God. Fear nobody but God. Wait a minute. Farakhan, are you rallying people against our president? No, sir. For this same book says, and the Bible bears witness, respect those in authority over you, whether they are of your faith or not, whether they respect you or not. You should respect those in authority. That's how you have order in your society. But there is a way to make your disapproval known. Not by picking up a gun, not by fashioning some bomb. The biggest gun that we have is truth and the unity of people behind truth.
There is a proverb from a very special place in Africa, the only place in Africa that experiences seasons, right? Now, this country is called Ethiopia, is called Lesotho. The people there call it Lesotho. So a proverb comes from there which says, a person is a person because of other people. So you are you because of other people, right? This proverb is just more than a saying. It is a philosophy of humanity, unity, and interdependence of the human race. It reminds us that no people can claim peace while others suffer, and no nation can truly prosper while others are crushed under the weight of justice. It is within this moral frame that we find Minister Louis Farakhan, who once declared a very, very powerful statement. What's good for America should also be good for Iran. America and Iran, I want to use them symbolically. America might mean a superpower. America might mean a bigger figure. America might mean a huge entity, right? And Iran, considering its size and its population, might represent the minorities, you know? Black people are just like 13% of the United States of America's population. Louis Farakhan said, again I repeat, what's good for America should also be good for Iran. On the surface, this statement seems geopolitical, but beneath it lies a deeper ethical challenge, a critique of selective justice, moral hypocrisy, and the uneven distribution of freedom both abroad and within America's own borders. That is what I want us to look at. We are going to use a touch of deconstruction, a literary tool that we use to deconstruct literature. Deconstructing these statements reveals layers of contradiction within the America's ideal. The USA, often projecting itself as a beacon of liberty and democracy, builds its moral narrative upon the belief that its values are universal, that its definition of good is a global standard. Yet, Louis Farakhan, exposes the fracture. If democracy and peace are truly universal values, why are they applied unevenly? Why must Iran or any other nation submit to America's definition of progress? Black people are continuing to struggle for the very right the nation claims to export, So you are exporting what you don't have. You can never multiply anything by zero because zero does not multiply. So you can't give what you don't have. Those are the statements of Louis Farakhan. I want us to dive, listen to him. I shall get back by the end of the video, of course, where we shall also have a deep critical analysis.
Who are the rogue states that America says she does not like? And let's see how oil is connected here. Would you put the map up for us, please? Now, I want you to point to Libya in North Africa. This don't reach. Oh, thank you. Now, this little desert country where most of the people live along the coast, because all of this is the desert, has the sweetest crude oil. One of the 3 countries in the world with the sweetest crude is Libya, Nigeria, and there's another one we'll get to. Now, if you hear the song we sing, how's it go? From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli. Where's Tripoli? We will fight our country's battles on the land and on the sea. What are you doing over here? Did these people bother you? No, they got oil. America had bases here. Military bases for what? Oil. They had a king called Idris. And Muammar Gaddafi, as a young man, in a bloodless coup, overthrew the king. And then kicked the British out, the Americans out, and nationalized the oil. Now he could raise the standard of living of all the Libyans with money left over to aid the liberation struggle of people all over the world. America got very upset with that. You messing with us, Gaddafi. You're a terrorist. Show us Iraq. Here it is. Now, Iraq has a lot of oil. And next door is Iran. A lot of oil. So in Iran, there was a man by the name of Mohammed Mossadegh. And he nationalized the oil. He's a bad man then to America and England. Why was he bad? Because he wanted to use the oil to raise the standard of living of the Iranian people. What's wrong with that? Nothing wrong with that to our eyes. Something was wrong with that to the eyes of the rich and the powerful. So they organized a coup and overthrew him and placed a man on the throne called the Shah of Iran, Reza Pahlavi. Now, as that was their man in Iran, they gave him weapons, modern planes, but he was a Muslim, but he was not deep in the religion. So under him, the religion suffered. So the people that wanted their religion to come back to purity started organizing. The leader of that was Imam Khomeini. He found a home in Iraq, then he found a home in France, and then they overthrew the Shah. When they overthrew the Shah, they brought him back from France. He becomes the leader of Iran, angry with America. So they're upset with him. Okay, what do you do about it, America? I'll tell you what we're going to do. Show me the map of the Middle Eastern part of the world. Now look at this. Here in Saudi Arabia, they got a whole lot of oil. So President Roosevelt, he struck up a good relationship with the king. And Aramco had access to all this oil. The kings lived well, but they did well for their people, but it was no democracy. America don't care nothing about that. Just keep pumping the oil. You know, every one of us has somebody in our family that is a victim of drugs. Do you? And you know something about a drug addict? It's your son, it's your daughter. Ooh, they become artful liars. I mean, they can make up the fanciest stories just to get money to get to the drug. If you don't give them the money, when you turn your back, your fur coat is gone. When you turn your back, this is gone, that is gone. They become thieves, and then soon, if they get real bad, they become murderers. You know, America is an oil junkie. She doesn't care how she gets it. She must have it. I gotta have my fix, okay? So now, you know, Imam, I had a discussion with Prince Bandar of Saudi Arabia. That man, Khomeini, when he came into Iran, he was angry with these sheikdoms here, Kuwait and the United Arab Emirates, and he was angry with the king of Saudi Arabia. He said, there's no king in Islam, only Allah is king. And in our prayer we say, "O Allah, thou art the king. There is no God but you." So this man, in his extreme devotion, he frightened Iraq because Iraq the leadership was socialist. They're Muslims, but Iraq and Syria, socialists, the Ba'ath Party in power. So what did America do? America said, Saddam, we will give you money and build you into a great power as a bulwark against Iran. Prince Bandar told me that the Saudis gave to Hussein $80 billion to build him into a military power. If he has weapons of mass destruction, where do you think he got them from? He started spending the 80 billion. He spent it with France. France built him an atomic reactor. The day it was finished, Israel bombed it. United Nations ain't said nothing. If they did, it was very weak. My point is, Iraq was a friend of America then, because Iran and Iraq fought a war for 8 years and over 1 million little Muslims died. But after the war was over, Iran military was weaker, but Iraq still had some juice. And that man was tricked. You see this little place called Kuwait here? That used to belong to Iraq. But the British cut this little piece out and cut up all these little pieces. Why you do that, Britain? Britain is like, I don't want to say this and be misunderstood, but, you know, I'm not going to say it. I'll put it this way. Whenever she leaves a place, she leaves it in a condition that will produce war. Yes, sir. So, now you have Iraq strong, Iran weak. Now trouble in Kuwait with the oil wells. They want to go into Kuwait. They speak to the American ambassador. And the American ambassador said, well, we don't have nothing to do with that. So they marched into Kuwait. Then Margaret Thatcher came out of England and went down to Colorado and met with President Bush. The next thing we know, Saddam, you have to get out of Kuwait. And when he went out of Kuwait, all these oil fields were set on fire. Guess what? The billions of dollars that the United Arab Emirates and the Kuwaitis have in banks in America, they had to pay American companies to go in, put out the fire. In the Congress of the United States, I read where some congressperson said, this is the first war we had where we made a profit. Because all the richness of Arabia, Kuwait, and the Arab Emirates was darn near drained from them. America put her soldiers there, and Arabia fit the bill. All right, let's go a little further. Look over here, Sudan. Come on, show me Sudan. Here it is. Do you know what? They found the largest deposit of oil anywhere in the world. Guess where they found it? In the southern Sudan. So now what America is trying to do is foster the revolution here to break off the southern Sudan from the Islamic regime in Khartoum, so that America could have access to the oil. But they say it's them Muslims killing Christians, making slaves out of these people in the South. Check this out. Y'all all right? I'm almost finished. America sent arms to Eritrea and Ethiopia. Are you listening? Then these two, they sent arms to Uganda. Raise it up a little. Come on. Come on. Now, here's Uganda. So here, all along the border of the Sudan, war was started with the Sudan. America, Uganda, Ethiopia, and Eritrea. But something happened. Eritrea started using her weapons of war against Ethiopia and vice versa. So they couldn't give Sudan the trouble that America wanted. America is something. You don't know these things because you don't travel, and you don't know these things because you're not interested, and you don't know these things because foreign policy is not for the common American, and that we have to change. I believe if the American people knew foreign policy would that which is better in the American people. Now let's see. Okay. Now, oil is discovered here. They want that. Let's go to Nigeria. Now, there's some sweet oil here. Do you know what America tried to do? Tried to separate, I think it's the eastern region, and call it Biafra, which sparked a civil war in Nigeria, causing thousands upon thousands of lives to be lost because of American foreign policy. Are you listening to me? I ain't finished. Let's go back to Afghanistan. All right. Now let's go up a little higher. Come on, come on. Move a little higher, right in here. See this place called Baku? This has been the place that oil has been coming out of this area for years and years and years. But the Soviet Union had control of the oil in Kazakhstan, in Uzbekistan, and in Tajikistan. All this area the Soviet Union had. Now, America, really something foreign policy. Let me go. Have you ever heard of Zbigniew Brzezinski? I know you didn't. You all heard of Shaq, though. The great Shaquille O'Neal. John Sally, but we don't know Zbigniew. But Zbigniew got us in trouble. Look at Zbigniew. He was the National Security Advisor under President Jimmy Carter. Guess what? Show me Afghanistan quickly. Come on, bring it up, bring it up, bring it up. Good, good, good. Afghanistan. Did you know that in the city of Kabul, 20-some years ago, the Muslims, women, they were in government, they were in school, they were in medicine, but something was wrong with Afghanistan. You know what was wrong? The government in Kabul leaned more toward the Soviet Union. They were Muslims, but they had a socialist leaning. America didn't like that. So Zbigniew Brzezinski, an American policy, sent money into Afghanistan to destabilize the government in Kabul. When they brought up and paid for opposition to the government in Kabul, Russia, the Soviet Union, sent their troops into Afghanistan and the war began. When the war started, Osama bin Laden was in Arabia growing up. He loves Islam. He loves Muslims. He sees the Soviet Union taking over Afghanistan. Now there's war in Afghanistan to get the Soviet Union out. America says, we're going to back those Muslim mujahideen. So American money, American weapons, trained them, and they drove the Soviet Union out after 10 years of war, which left Afghanistan now in ruins. Then they were looking to America to help them, and America backed out and left them in that condition, and a civil war broke out right there in Afghanistan. This is all truth. The country is already in ruins, our civil war. Now you got the Taliban. So the Taliban comes to power. They want a pure Islamic state, whatever that is, which we're all searching, to find out what that is. And everybody's trying to represent what that is. And I think some of them mean well, but boy, I wouldn't want to live in no state like that. And I'm a Muslim. I think my wife would kill me if I put her in a burqa, put a tent on her and say, come on, you walk behind me, cover your face. I don't want to see nothing. And some of you think that that's Islam. If the prophet could come back today, he might put you over his knee and beat you for putting women under that kind of tyranny and calling it Islam. We got a big job to do, Imam. I'm almost finished. Now the Taliban are in power. They control 90% of the land except this part in the northern area. And guess what? President Bush, when he came into office, which some think was a coup. I better drink some water. I didn't say that I think that, but some people think it was a coup. Why is that? Well, Mr. Gore won the popular vote. Mr. Gore didn't win Tennessee, his own home state, and he didn't win Arkansas, President Clinton's home state. So it threw the thing down into Florida. And a lot of trouble there. A lot of black folk didn't get to vote. A lot of Jewish people, they pushed a little something and the Chad fell one way when they wanted somebody else. So those Jewish people were robbed of their vote. The blacks were robbed of their vote. And then all of a sudden, the Supreme Court got involved. They did it all in a civilized way, though, After all, we're a nation of laws and not of men, so these men got together finagling with the law, and the next thing we know, we got a new president, and the country is angry. And on the day that that man was inaugurated, you had the largest protest demonstration in the history of the inauguration of any president, and they were calling President Bush the man that stole the presidency. Y'all forgot that, didn't you? The country was deeply divided until September the 11th. Congress was locked down and struggled, Democrat and Republican, until September the 11th. I read something written by two Frenchmen called Osama bin Laden, The Forbidden Truth. And they said that early on in the Bush administration, he was negotiating with the Taliban. And he said they were a source of stability. Why was he negotiating? Let me tell you. Look up here. All of this, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, this is oil. And guess what? A company called Unocal owns 75% of the oil up here. Mr. Dick Cheney, I think. And what they wanted was a pipeline to come down through Afghanistan into Pakistan, into the Arabian Sea, the Indian Ocean, as an outlet for the oil of that area. The Taliban didn't agree. Now, listen to this. Back in July, an American representative went and met with the Taliban, sometimes in the UN, sometimes right here, or in Peshawar, in Pakistan, and said, look, either you accept a carpet of gold, or we will bury you under a carpet of bombs. This is July. September the 11th. Now, Osama bin Laden. They didn't know nothing the day before. September the 10th, you don't know nothing about no terrorists. September the 11th, 12th, and 13th, they got 19 faces in the paper. These are the guys. Well, when did you learn that? How did you learn that? Something is wrong with this picture. Now look at this. Muslims, Arabs got all the blame, sure enough. And they went immediately to the Congress, beating the drums of war. See, we've been attacked. This is a shame. Oh, look at all the Americans that lost their lives. Yeah. President asked for 20 billion. Congress said no, 40 billion. And the big military powers saying, our companies are not going to go down. Now you got to keep that spirit of war up now, see? So you are the pawns in all of this. The media drumming it up. And nobody that had a serious voice of questioning, they cut them off immediately. And you know, some very good Christians, like Billy Graham's son. I mean, that's big when you come from Billy Graham. And he spoke something very ugly about Islam. And so did Reverend Falwell. The God of Islam is a God of hate. And the God of Christianity is a God of love. Ask them black people who died in the South and all the people that dying all over the world from so-called Christians. It's all right, it's all right, it's all right. This brother just needed a little water. He'll be all right. Leave him alone. He's good. See him getting up. Don't lose your attention over here. We got somebody to handle that over there. But I'm almost where I want to be. Now, I'd like to take you to Asia a minute. Let's go to Indonesia. Now, right here in Indonesia, a lot of islands. This is one of the largest concentrations of Muslims in the world. There was a leader here called President Sukarno. He's a strong nationalist. And in 1955, that man, Sukarno, called what is called the Bandung Conference, where all the darker nations of the earth were invited, and no European nation was invited. No white people invited to that at all. Now that sent a strong signal to Europe and America. What are they talking about? that we can't come. Well, they were talking about you. Well, that's what they were doing. Then notice this. Sukarno was overthrown, and a man by the name of Suharto came to power. And as I asked President Wahid, former president of Indonesia, I had read that over 500,000 Indonesians lost their lives from the CIA stuff. And President Wahid said, no, it was more close to 1 million. Now, you want to know why people in the world hate? You don't understand the dirt that goes on in your name. And that's why the American people have to be awakened. Am I upsetting you? You know, I'm not trying to upset you. But now that they've destroyed the Taliban, Mr. Karzai, whom America set up, he now will get the carpet of gold. And let's see if that pipeline won't come through Afghanistan. It's all about oil and power. Now I'd like to close. This so-called war on terrorism gives every repressive regime in the world a hiding place, because all they have to do is say, I'm fighting terrorism. Now, brothers and sisters, there is a difference between a terrorist and a freedom fighter. You have to know the difference. If you were a slave master, Nat Turner was what? I said, if you were a slave master, Nat Turner was a terrorist. But to the slave, he's a freedom fighter. If you were in Haiti, when Napoleon sent his armies there, to Napoleon in France, Toussaint Louverture and Dessalines and Christophe were terrorists. But to the people of Haiti, freedom fighters. If you were a part of the Crown of England, Paul Revere, the Minutemen, Crispus Attucks, terrorists. But to the Americans in the colonies, these are the freedom fighters that gave you what you call the United States of America. Now, on this earth, there are regimes that are unworthy. And there are people who earnestly want to be free. And if you lived in South Africa, Mandela was a terrorist to the South African leadership, but to the suffering people, he was their champion. And that's why he's honored all over the world, because he was willing to pay a price. John Brown, a white man who hated slavery and fought against it. To the establishment, he was an enemy. But in his conscience, he died because he believed that slavery would be the undoing of America. Martin Luther King Jr. To many whites in this nation was a troublemaker. Am I lying? Some of you that got his picture on your wall today, when Martin Luther King spoke against the war in Vietnam, many preachers turned him down, turned against him, turned on him. To J. Edgar Hoover, he was an un-American and a demon. But to us, he was a freedom fighter. Malcolm X, to the government of the United States, was an enemy of America, but to us, a freedom fighter. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, was called un-American and enemy, but to us, he's a freedom fighter. So as beauty is in the eyes of the beholder, I ask the United Nations to develop a definition of what a terrorist is and use that as a standard by which to judge who is and who is not. The UN right now cannot define what a terrorist is. And because they are slow in coming up with a definition, every repressive regime now is having a holiday, killing people that are trying to call them back to faith. So when America says, this is not against Islam, the religion of Islam is the religion of peace. It's President Bush saying this. You don't lie on our religion. It is the religion of peace. But this book, Quran, contains guidance from Allah through Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, of every situation that you would confront up to the day of judgment. So it teaches us how to conduct war and how war should end. It's a great religion. But the press has made the world think that Islam is a religion of terrorism. Who was Timothy McVeigh? What church did he belong to? You don't even know. Because when they wrote of Timothy McVeigh, his actions were so un-Christian-like, they would never say Christian Timothy McVeigh. They just said Timothy McVeigh. How in the hell is it then that everybody that does something wrong and makes a mark on the faith, you have to put our faith in it? Muslim terrorists. These two words are not synonymous. They have no compatibility with each other. No Muslim is a terrorist. But every Muslim is challenged by God to stand up against tyrants, speak against them, do something to stop tyranny. So I guess every tyrant would see those who struggle for freedom as a terrorist. Now, my dear family, President Bush does intend to go into Iraq. He's made you believe that Saddam Hussein is a terrible man. He's no more terrible than Bush. He's no more terrible than Bush's father. He's no more terrible than Clinton. Because all of them do things in the name of their government that if the truth were made known, there would be a Nuremberg trial for American presidents. And I believe that's why Milosevic is on trial right now. Because in the Nuremberg trial, soldiers were asked, why did you obey Hitler when he told you to put men, women, and children in ovens? They said, we were soldiers. We were obeying our orders. But Nuremberg said, you do not have to obey an order when that order invites you to destroy human life for nothing. Do you think that President Bush is justified by law to go into Iraq and sit Saddam Hussein down? Answer me. What law gives him the right to do that? The Monroe kept America out of the affairs of other nations and kept them out of our affairs, because every sovereign nation has the right to govern itself. And if the people under that leader do not like that leader, they have the right to sit him down. But America does not have that right. Do you agree? You do?
After clearly listening to this video, here is my deep critical analysis. In the tradition of deconstruction, the deconstruction is like a critical analysis, a tool that you're going to use to dissect the words of Louis Farakhan, So, Louis Farakhan would insist that meaning collapses when words are often used to hold two opposing truths, For instance, good for America carries the weight of national interest. What's good for the nation of America? Now, that term we can point it at the broader meaning of good for America, So this often meaning that dominance, profit, and control is what America deserves. But good for Iran suggests mutual respect, fairness, and equality among nations. The contradiction lies in America's double language. Liberty for some, domination for others. Equality for the powerful, exploitation for the weak, The same contradiction extends inwards to the streets of Chicago, Detroit, and Atlanta, where the descendants of enslaved Africans, still face structural poverty, while police brutality and economic exclusion still exist. You know, the words of Louis Farakhan and his statements can thus be read as both an external and an internal critique. You know, Louis Farakhan insists that he is not only speaking about Iran, he is speaking about Black Americans as well. He is pointing out that the empire which demands justice abroad must first confront its own internal empire, the system of racialized control that defines who benefits from the American good. America cannot claim to defend human rights in the Middle East while Black children in its inner circles live under constant surveillance, hunger, and fear. The contradiction between the US dream and the Black American reality thus becomes a mirror for the hypocrisy of US foreign policies. You know, earlier on in the video, remember when I told you that Iran is a representation of the weak in the society, right? The marginalized, the smaller community in the United States of America or just around the world, right? And so what's good for America, again, I repeat, might be showing an interest of a nation. For this case, it is the United States of America. It is power, it is economic brilliance, it is political actuation, you know. And so you find that Louis Farakhan tries to understand, and he tries to see that America calls itself the stewards of morality, but they really ain't stewards of morality. They are stewards of their own morality. And what they say is good for them, you know, they say is good for them based on their own standards, but not on the outside standards. So Louis Farakhan invites us to a thought train that leads us to a point where there is nothing that is universal with the United States of America. You know, what they say is good for them is not always good for other people. Anytime, just come to think of it, anytime you hear there's a fight in Africa, you always hear US is involved. In some way, they are always involved. In some way, you can't miss them, you know. You can't miss any Western power in any conflict happening in Africa. While they power their nations, Africa lives in the darkness, you know. That happens a lot. So Louis Farakhan brings us to that thought. America's standardization is not a script for the rest of the world. It is not a set standard for other people. No, it can't be. See, deconstruction allows us also to dismantle this false binary of us versus them. America versus Iran, you know, and instead we should recognize a shared connection of oppression. Both the Iranian people under economic sanctions and the Black Americans under systemic racism experience what can be called moral marginalization, you know, the denial of full humanity, experience, what can be called the denial of full humanity under structures that disguise domination as order. Louis Farakhan's moral call is this: that what is good for one must be good for all. This is an appeal of universal reciprocity, the same principle found in the Lesotho proverb. You are you because of other people. A person is a person because of other people, right? How then would you be you if we don't balance you with the rest of the people? Everyone must be compared to the rest of people, is when we identify who you are. Now that is called individuality. Individuality, you see, in philosophy we are taught that there are only two people in this world. There's you and there's everyone. So everyone is a reference point that we should have to, we should take to scale you, to judge you, you know. You see, if America were to truly embody its stated ideals, then its good would mean peace, not sanctions, equality, not hierarchy, and justice, not surveillance. But as long as its goodness is built upon exclusion of nations, of races, of the poor, then that goodness is a counterfeit. It's a fake goodness. It becomes what Jacques Derrida would call a trace of justice, a shadow that gestures towards a real but never achieves it. You know, it's just a trace, a shadow, a glimpse of justice. For Black Americans, Farakhan's words resonate as a demand for domestic liberation. The systemic governance that privileges whiteness while pathologizing blackness is itself a form of internal colonialism. It dictates who gets to dream, who gets to live, and who gets to die at the hands of state institutions. In this sense, the struggle for justice in Iran mirrors the struggle for justice in the American ghetto. Both are about reclaiming the right to self-determination, to exist outside the dictates of a system that defines itself as superior, you know? So, ultimately, the question that Farakhan asks is one that all empires must face. Can a nation that denies equality at home truly promote justice abroad? Can they export justice? Remember when I told you you can't export what you don't have. You can't give what you don't have, because zero does not multiply. You know? Can a nation that denies equality at home truly promote justice abroad? You know? His challenge, Louis Farakhan's challenge, is not just political, but moral. And to some level, it is also theological. A call to align policy with principle, rhetoric with reality. See, going back to the proverb, the message is clear. A nation cannot be whole if it denies the humanity of others. What is good for America must indeed be good for Iran, for Africa, for the poor, for the marginalized, and for the Black Americans. Or it is not good at all. Yes. Guys, I hope that you've gained value from watching this, and I really feel that you'll get inspired by learning that we have to measure you by everyone else, and you are you because of other people, right? So what's good for America is good for the rest, should be good for the rest of the country, of the world. You know, if you love yourself and you don't love other people, that's a sin. You see how much you love yourself, love other people. That's the greatest commandment that we were given. So just do that and you'll find yourself living peacefully with the rest of humanity. Yeah. Guys, I hope that you've gained value. If you have, subscribe, share this video, support me on Patreon. I'll surely appreciate it. See you in the next one.